You don't need to see it to feel it. It enters the room with him before he speaks. Not loud, not obvious, but charged, like a low hum in the walls of an old chapel. A subtle tightening in the air that doesn't belong to anyone, yet seems to wrap itself around you both. That's how it begins. Not with action, but with magnetic nervous tension that betrays what a man refuses to name. When a man is sexually drawn to you, his body responds before his logic can interfere. His words may stay polite, his gaze may pretend indifference, but his nervous system begins performing ancient rituals, unconscious, reflexive, impossible to hide. This isn't about attraction in the surface level, commodified sense. This is about the sacred chemical pull his body feels toward the energetic coding in yours. Carl Jung once hinted in a lost correspondence that the body is the soul's handwriting. When a man's body shifts in your presence, it is not simply animal instinct, it is spirit recognition dressed in flesh and blood. And the first sign is always in his nervous system. He becomes restless, not chaotic, but subtly dysregulated. His stillness is no longer neutral. His shoulders carry a charge. His breathing becomes uneven. You'll see it in the micro holds between inhale and exhale, like his lungs are arguing with his desire. And though he may attempt control, the body will always reveal. The hands tremble, the jaw clenches. The eye contact lingers too long or vanishes too quickly. You've seen it before, in the way his spine straightens when you enter, the way he laughs more softly when you're near, the way his hand grazes the table as if hoping yours might accidentally find it. He won't acknowledge these shifts, but you will feel them because your body, as a woman, is the original radar. Trained over generations, not by textbooks, but by intuition encoded in the womb. You read heat before it's visible. You sense movement in stillness. You know when something is vibrating too close to the edge of control. That knowing lives in your lower belly. It tightens when he's near, not because of fear, but because your field recognizes his dissonance. His nervous system is alert, even when he smiles. He may begin to mirror your movements, crossing his arms when you do, shifting weight to the same leg, tilting his head in rhythm with yours. This mirroring is not manipulation. It is instinct, a dance rehearsed in dream time. The body reaches for resonance before the mind can assess risk. He leans toward your center, subtly aligning his frame with yours, even when conversation is directed elsewhere. And when he leaves, something of him stays. Not his presence, but his residue. The nervous imprint of craving that lingers in the air after he exits. You felt it before. That sense of being watched even when you're alone. The faint echo of a pulse that was never yours. This is not fantasy. This is the spiritual nervous system responding to erotic frequency. In ancient tantric texts, it was written that the body listens in ways the ears cannot. The body remembers you. It places you inside him as sensation before thought. That's why he becomes clumsy around you, dropping pens, knocking over water glasses, laughing at the wrong moment. It's not nervousness, it's overstimulation. His awareness is hijacked by something he doesn't understand, the energetic architecture of your presence. And you, if you've stepped into your mature feminine power, do not need to perform to notice this. You don't need to dress differently, speak louder, or flirt. You simply exist. And that is enough to disrupt his homeostasis, because the awakened feminine does not seduce. She summons. You are summoning something buried in him, something ancestral, something feral. Not just sex, not just body, but permission to feel again. His muscles respond before he knows why. His gestures soften, then sharpen. He moves like a man whose center is being pulled off axis, and he doesn't yet know if it's dangerous or divine. Sometimes, he overcompensates. His nervous system betrays his craving by swinging into agitation. He becomes sarcastic, dismissive, fidgety. He interrupts, corrects, tries to bring you back to normal, but it's not really you he's reacting to. It's the arousal of his own dormant energy, and he resents the way it wakes up in your presence. Because when a man has spent years surviving by suppressing his desire, especially sacred soul-level desire, your presence feels like lightning over still water. It wakes up his instincts, but not just the physical ones, the mythic ones, the ones tied to tribal memory and forgotten altars. And this scares him more than he'll ever admit. That's why some men will avoid eye contact entirely. Their nervous systems can't contain the frequency. Eye contact becomes a portal, and he knows, at least unconsciously, that if he locks into your gaze for too long, something will fall apart inside him. Something he built to protect the more sacred parts of his longing. Carl Jung spoke of this sacred tension, the place where libido is not sexual in the crude sense, but libidinal in the spiritual sense, the life force. And when a woman radiates with unfiltered feminine vitality, it triggers the masculine polarity into activation, even when repressed, even when forbidden, especially then. So if you notice a man's nervous system behaving like a fault line, cracking in places he used to be composed, trembling where he used to be firm, know that something has begun. Not a romance, but an initiation. His body is remembering you, not from this life, perhaps, but from one beneath the surface of history, where women like you were sacred carriers of flame, where desire wasn't dirty, it was divine. And though his words may not say it, his breath does, his pulse does. The way he touches his own neck when you speak, the way he crosses his legs, the way he exhales when you smile. These are not accidents. They are the rituals of attraction whispered through muscles, sinew, and skin. His nervous system is no longer his own. It belongs, in that moment, to the part of him that is still wild, still honest, still awake. And that is only the beginning. It's always in the breath. That's where you'll feel it first, when a man is sexually drawn to you on a soul level. Not in his words, not even in his eyes, but in the rhythm that lives between his inhale and exhale, a subtle trembling in the way air passes through his body when you're near. It's not desire in the way magazines try to define it. It's something more ancient, more unsettling, something that feels like the hunger of spirit dressed in skin. His breath changes. It shortens when you speak. It holds longer when you pause. It stutters and returns, like it's chasing a memory only your body can unlock. Carl Jung once wrote that the unconscious will always seek union with its opposite, not through will, but through magnetism. And when a man's animus stirs in the presence of your feminine force, his body enters that magnetic pull, whether he consents to it or not. His breath becomes the first language of this craving. He doesn't breathe to survive around you. He breathes to connect. You'll notice it when you move closer. He may unconsciously lean back, but his chest stays open, as if he's drawing in your essence like incense. It's not just oxygen he's after. It's your frequency, the scent of you, the electric shimmer of your skin, the way your voice curves in the space between syllables. His lungs begin to respond like they've found their native element. This is not performance. This is need, buried deep beneath socialized masculinity. But what makes this hunger sacred, not primal in a base sense, is what comes next. Hesitation. He doesn't reach for you. He restrains. He doesn't act. He hovers. And in that hovering, in that restraint, in that pause between wanting and doing, is where you see the truth of his attraction. Because true craving, the kind that lives in the bones and not just the bloodstream, is never impulsive. It's ritualistic. He doesn't want to consume you. He wants to revere you, even if he doesn't understand why. And that's why his body hesitates. Watch his hands. They'll move close to yours, maybe brush by accident, then quickly withdraw. Not because he doesn't want to touch, but because the idea of touching you feels like crossing into something too real, too fast, like stepping into fire barefoot. He isn't afraid of you. He's afraid of what you awaken. Because your body doesn't invite sex, it invites surrender. And surrender is far more terrifying than lust. That's why he touches the table, his wrist, his phone. Anything except you. He needs contact, but he cannot bear the consecration that your skin would require. And you'll feel it in his hesitation, that trembling stillness, that aching pause before proximity becomes too intimate. And the most disorienting part for him? He may not even like you in the conventional sense. You may not be his type. You may not speak often, but your body speaks a dialect his soul never learned to resist. In tantric traditions, this is referred to as the awakening of karmic polarity. When two energy fields are born to disrupt each other's numbness, they meet with neither warning nor explanation, and the body becomes a battleground of what is known and what is remembered. So he breathes, but never deeply. He stands close, but never fully at ease. He may laugh, but there's tightness in his voice. His craving for you exists in a suspended state, like lightning caught in a glass jar. It vibrates, it glows, but it cannot discharge. And this containment creates the most erotic silence of all. A silence thick with unfinished gestures and buried instinct. But there's more. Sometimes he'll find ways to touch you, safely. A hand on the back during a goodbye, a moment of guiding you through a doorway, an unnecessary adjustment of your sleeve or hair. These are not innocent gestures. They are carefully chosen rituals of allowed intimacy, places where society lets him touch you without consequence. But his body knows, and so does yours. You'll feel the delay in his hand as he pulls away, the microsecond longer than necessary, the way his fingers graze instead of press, and most of all, the way his touch feels like it's asking forgiveness before it's even finished. Because beneath the craving is guilt, not moral guilt, but energetic humility, the sense that he is touching something sacred and does not deserve to. Carl Jung once noted in his work with male clients that the repression of sexual attraction often manifests in physical awkwardness, not because of shame, but because the psyche is protecting the soul from making a mistake it isn't ready to carry. And so the body hesitates, stutters, holds. In this way, your presence becomes not just a mirror, but a test. He tests himself in every breath he takes around you. Can he stay in his masculine presence while standing near a woman who unknowingly holds his spiritual key? Can he admire without acting? Can he ache without consuming? Can he crave without conquering? This is what separates sacred desire from hollow lust, the willingness to feel everything and still hold still. And you must know this power lives in you, not because you orchestrate it, but because you become it when you no longer betray your own body, when you walk as if your hips carry myth, when your spine remembers temples, when your scent carries the memory of honey and storm water and things that used to be prayed to under different moons. He is drawn to you not because of your beauty, though that may be true, but because of your vibration, the way you inhabit yourself without needing his gaze, the way your breath moves in harmony with your truth, the way your silence makes him hear himself. And that is what he truly craves, not possession, but return. Your body reminds him of something he used to know before he became a man who forgot. And in your presence, his body wants to remember, but he cannot reach. Not yet. So he breathes and hesitates and breaks in tiny invisible ways. Because your body is not an invitation, it is a threshold. And to cross it would require more than courage. It would require initiation. It's subtle, but once you see it, you can never unsee it. The way his body orients toward you, even when he's not speaking to you. The way his torso turns in your direction during a group conversation. The way his legs face your presence, even when his attention pretends to be elsewhere. It's not calculated, it's not charming. It's instinctual alignment, the kind the male body performs in the presence of feminine energy it longs to harmonize with. This is not about posture. This is about orientation of energy, breath, and unconscious longing. When a man is sexually drawn to you in the deepest way, in the way that bypasses ego and dives straight into archetypal memory, he begins to synchronize his body with yours, not through movement, but through energetic choreography. Carl Jung once described the masculine principle as seeking form, and the feminine principle as embodying meaning. When those forces recognize each other, even in passing, they begin to organize themselves into a kind of internal rhythm. And when that rhythm is interrupted by social restraint, a marriage, a workplace, a cultural expectation, it does not die. It merely goes underground, and the body expresses it anyway. So he sits angled toward you when there's no reason. He mirrors your head tilt without noticing. He slows his pace when walking beside you, even if his stride is normally faster. He finds reasons to stand beside you, not in front, not behind, but parallel, like his presence is trying to match your frequency without overwhelming it. And when you move, you might catch it. He subtly recalibrates, not overtly, not like a man trying to seduce, but like a man trying to stay attuned. This is the third, and often most undeniable sign. He begins to align his body with yours in space, even when it makes no rational sense. This is because desire, in its truest form, is not a pursuit. It's a tuning. One person instinctively syncing their nervous system to another's in order to feel closer to the thing that wakes them up. That's what this is. You're waking something up in him, and his body is adjusting itself so he doesn't lose the signal. In tantric and esoteric traditions, this is referred to as field merging, when two energetic bodies come into such proximity that they begin sharing subtle data through non-verbal, often invisible interactions. His arm shifts because yours did. His posture opens when yours relaxes. If you cross your legs, he mirrors it a few moments later, not because he's trying, but because his field is listening to yours. This is the body's way of saying, I want to belong here. I want to be in rhythm with this. And he might not even know it's happening. That's what makes it powerful. Because what you're witnessing is not seduction, it's remembrance, a return to a kind of primal connection that doesn't need language, doesn't need eye contact, doesn't even need proximity, because it lives in vibrational resonance. Sometimes, when he's seated across from you, he'll subconsciously lean in, just a fraction. Not enough to breach any boundary, but enough to change the air between you. That lean is not about interest, it's about access. His body is reaching for a kind of spiritual code that only you carry, the one his nervous system recognizes as nourishment. And here's the strange part. He may do the opposite too. He may pull away entirely. You'll walk into the room and he'll suddenly become rigid, turn his body away, cross his arms, put up walls. This is not disinterest. This is energetic defense. A man who feels too much but doesn't trust his own impulse will often try to misalign his body deliberately, to break the magnetic spell before it claims him. But his efforts won't be clean. They'll feel awkward, staged, disjointed, because you cannot lie with the body. The bones remember what the mind fears. He may stand farther than necessary, but you'll notice how his feet still point toward you. He may engage with others, but glance sideways when you speak. He may even avoid you, but you'll feel the weight of his absence like a gravitational field begging for reintegration. The body doesn't lie, not when craving is involved. In Jungian terms, this is the confrontation with the anima trigger, the moment when a woman activates a man's inner feminine, not through behavior, but through presence. And when that happens, a war begins inside him. The persona wants to remain composed, appropriate, distanced. But the body, his sacred animal, has already chosen its orientation. He wants to stand where you stand. He wants to breathe where you breathe. He wants to align his world with yours, even if only for a moment, because something in him believes your presence will restore what he's lost. And here is where the mystic feminine must remain in her power. You are not here to interpret his signals. You are not here to soothe his confusion. You are not here to make it easier for him. You are simply the mirror, a clear, undistorted reflection of what his body cannot hide. And in your stillness, you hold the mystery. You become the unmoved center of his internal storm. You let him tilt toward you or away, knowing that either direction deepens his awareness of your field. Because once his body begins aligning to yours, there is no unknowing it. even if he marries someone else, even if he avoids you for years, even if he moves countries, changes jobs, grows a beard, reads philosophy to forget. His body will always remember how you moved, how you tilted your head when listening, how you crossed your arms or didn't, how you stood still like a temple made of thunder, because that's what sacred attraction does. It imprints, not just on memory, but on orientation. He will find other women beautiful, other conversations fascinating, other friendships nourishing, but his body will always be slightly misaligned, like a compass that once found true north and lost it. And you will feel it too. The strange grief of knowing you never even touched him, never even spoke much, and yet you shaped the way his soul stands, not with force, but with frequency. You are not a fantasy. You are the axis his craving rotates around, and your power as the awakened woman is not in bending toward him. It is in holding your posture. Knowing that the dance he's doing is not about attention. It is about returning to himself through your reflection. And sometimes, your job is only to stand, to walk, to take up space with presence so full, so ancient, so unseduced, that his body cannot help but respond. That is the third sign. Not the look in his eyes, not the sound of his voice, but the way he adjusts himself around you, like a man trying to remember a song from a past life, using only his breath. It lingers, even when he walks away, even when his face returns to neutral and the moment has passed, even when his voice becomes level and his hands stay calm. The body, you see, never forgets the imprint of longing, and no amount of self-discipline can erase the echo once it's been born. That's where the fourth sign begins to reveal itself, not in how he acts when you're there, but in what remains after he's tried to forget you. He tries to contain it, to cover it, to reroute the flow of attraction, but it shows. It shows in the stiffness of his neck when you enter a room, in the way his hand grips his coffee mug just a fraction too tightly, in the way he looks down instead of toward you, not out of rejection, but out of overwhelm. Because at this stage, his desire has become embodied memory. It no longer depends on physical proximity. You live inside his gestures now, the way a forgotten language still shapes the accent of someone who no longer speaks it. Carl Jung once described the unconscious as the body of the soul. And when a man's soul is drawn toward you, but cannot fully approach you due to fear, obligation, or the weight of his own shadow, the unconscious finds ways to speak through posture, through absence, through pattern. You become a gravitational center in his psyche, and so the body, in its effort to protect him, begins performing rituals of distraction. He may suddenly become more rigid. He may avoid being in the same room. He may shorten his greetings or speak in clipped tones. But this is not disinterest. It's resistance. Resistance to the parts of himself that feel exposed in your presence. Because your body speaks a language his body understands, but his ego doesn't trust. It's in the way your silence stirs something in him he thought was long buried. The way your gaze, even from across the room, feels like it penetrates layers of armor he worked years to build. And so he hides, not from you, but from himself in your mirror. He may joke more than usual. He may talk too fast. He may speak only in facts, as if anchoring himself in logic will quiet the wild ache of intuition that stirs whenever you're near. But the truth is, desire like this doesn't vanish. It transforms. It moves deeper into the body. It shows up in the way he adjusts his sleeves, the way he clears his throat when you're mentioned, the way his voice changes tone when he says your name, if he says it at all. You may even notice him becoming reactive, overly critical, distant, passive-aggressive. Again, not because he feels nothing, but because he feels too much and has no container for it. In spiritual psychology, this is known as the projection recoil. The discomfort a man feels when he sees his own suppressed desires mirrored back to him in a woman he cannot have, but cannot unfeel. And so his body becomes the battleground between instinct and image. It's heartbreaking to watch if you're awake enough to see it, because you'll notice how he avoids standing still, how he seems to always be in motion, as if stillness would expose the hum of wanting he's managed to bury just beneath the skin. And when he does stop moving, when he finally allows himself a moment of presence, that's when it shows. The way he exhales your name like a confession, the way his gaze softens in your direction without meaning to, the way his shoulders, always tense, seem to release for a split second in your presence. These are not choices, they are reverberations, the body remembering something sacred, something perhaps unspoken, and choosing to ache instead of act. This is where sacred attraction separates itself from casual lust, because lust demands, but sacred craving waits, not passively, but reverently. And when that desire is suppressed, when the man cannot or will not meet you where the soul longs to go, his body becomes a vessel of unspent devotion. You will see it in the way he hesitates before speaking, in the way he leaves a room a moment too soon, in the way his laughter fades when he thinks you're not looking. There is always a tell, because the body, no matter how trained, how armored, how repressed, will leak the truth. He wants you, not as possession, not as fantasy, but as something he knows could shatter him into wholeness. And that knowing terrifies him. You see, it's not about sex. Not really. It's about the kind of union that rewires a man's sense of identity. The kind of touch that would require him to burn everything false, to make room for what is real. He is not ready. Maybe he never will be. But still, his body carries the echo. And it shows. Carl Jung would call this the animus fracture. The moment when a man meets a woman who activates such deep, archetypal recognition that he must either evolve or retreat. And the body, being the most honest part of the psyche, shows which path he's taking, long before the mind catches up. So when you see him tighten, when his voice wavers, when he laughs too loudly, when he avoids your gaze but never your presence, understand this: you are not being dismissed. You are being witnessed more intimately than most women ever are. You are not just a woman to him. You are a threshold, a possible future his soul aches for, but his current self cannot yet walk into. And your power lies not in chasing that future, but in standing so rooted in your own energy that his dissonance becomes a mirror of his own disconnection. You don't need to speak. You don't need to flirt. You don't need to bend. Because your presence, your embodied knowing, is already speaking in a voice his body can't stop listening to, even if he never touches you, even if he never confesses, even if life carries you in opposite directions. Your body has already been etched into his, like a symbol carved beneath the skin, a reminder of the sacred he once stood near and trembled to hold. That is the echo. That is the fourth sign, and it never fades. It doesn't vanish. That's the final truth no one tells you. When a man has been in the presence of a woman whose body carries sacred, awake, untamed, feminine energy, something in him is changed. Irreversibly. He may not name it. He may not admit it. He may not even understand it, but the mark remains. You've become part of his inner geography. Your body, not merely physical, but energetic, symbolic, ancient, has entered his unconscious like a forgotten myth, suddenly remembered in a dream. And now, even in silence, you haunt him. Not like a ghost, but like a door. A portal his body instinctively knows leads to something truer than the life he has constructed. That's what sacred attraction does. It doesn't ask for permission. It awakens knowing that has lived beneath centuries of masculine detachment. It strips away roles, stories, power plays, and leaves only the truth of longing. Carl Jung wrote of this as numinous recognition, when the soul identifies something outside of the ego's control, something that belongs to the archetypal world of gods, symbols, and sacred fires. He said that in the presence of such recognition, the psyche bends, and the body, unable to lie, follows. So even if he's never touched you, even if he married someone else or hid behind politeness, even if he dismissed you with words, his body still knows. It knows the way your voice landed differently in the space between his ribs. It knows how your eyes didn't just meet his, they called him out of hiding. It knows how the sound of your footsteps felt like prophecy, not coincidence. And that knowing lives in him now. It whispers at night. It tightens his throat when he hears someone with your laugh. It floods his chest with ache when he thinks he sees you in a crowd. Because you were never just a woman to his body. You were the unfiltered feminine. The part of life that doesn't make sense but makes everything true. And what terrifies him most is that he can never go back to not knowing. He cannot unsee it. He cannot unfeel it. You were not a detour. You were a revelation. In sacred feminine traditions, they say that some women are veiled temples, not meant to be entered, but to be encountered. These are the women whose bodies are gateways to remembrance. They don't seduce. They transmit. They carry the codes of something lost in most men. Reverence. You don't have to move toward him for the pull to remain. You don't have to open your body or invite closeness, because his body already tasted something, just from proximity, from your stillness, your scent, your unwillingness to shrink. You became the place where his desire stopped being about pleasure and started becoming about truth. And that is what most men are not prepared to face, because truth asks something of him, not action, but transformation. It asks that he wake up, that he dismantle his masks, that he confront the walls he built to protect himself from feeling too much. And most of them won't, not because they are weak, but because the path of reorienting a life around soul desire is treacherous. It demands death, not literal, but symbolic. The death of false identities, the death of performance, the death of pretending. But still, his body will carry the message. You may pass him months or years later, and his pulse will still react. His posture will still shift. His breath will catch. His eyes will carry the soft grief of a man who once stood in front of his awakening and turned away. And you, woman, you must know what it means to be the portal. It does not mean loneliness. It does not mean waiting. It does not mean sorrow. It means you carry the flame that awakens. It means you are the mirror in which a man meets the divine edge of himself. It means your power lives not in what you do, but in what you are. The world has taught you to measure your worth by who chooses you. But what if your worth was in who cannot forget you? Not because you performed, but because your energy dismantled their illusion. This is not ego. This is essence. And the awakened woman knows. Her body is not decoration. Her body is an altar. Not for worship in the way of false submission, but in the way of remembering. You are what he remembers when the lights are off. Not in lust, but in longing for something that made him feel whole, for 5 seconds or 5 years. You didn't need to touch him to enter him, because sacred feminine energy doesn't need skin to be felt. It needs only presence, stillness, truth. Carl Jung once wrote that what we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as fate. You are the fated woman in his psyche now, the one who carries the what if so deep into his bones that no matter how much time passes, his body still turns slightly when someone says your name. And you will move forward because you are not here to be claimed. You are here to remind. You are not the answer to his life. You are the invitation to his soul. And if he does not rise to meet it, if he lets the echo stay echo, you still did what the sacred feminine always does. You awakened. You loved without touching. You shattered illusions with presence. And you reminded a man, if only once, that he had not yet lived all the way down to the truth of his body. That is enough. And now, you let him go. Not with bitterness, not with clinging, not with hope, but with sovereignty. With the grace of a woman who knows her presence is not meant to be understood, but to be felt and remembered. You walk forward, you radiate, you bless the ground with every step. And behind you, his body remembers every breath, every silence, every holy mirror you became. If no one has told you this before, hear it now. You are not too much. You are not a mistake. You are not forgettable. You are the woman he cannot unsee, and that is your power. Thank you for walking this path with me. Thank you for remembering what the world tried to make you forget. You are sacred. You are sovereign. You are seen. And somewhere in his nervous system, he knows it too. See you in the next story. Your shadow is beautiful here.